Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Richard Lewis Show. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Not going to be talking to Sam this time, although he is here pressing buttons in the background like he often does. But instead, we have got a guest in the form of one of the leading commentators in the Dota 2 scene, one of the voices of Dota. It is Toby Dawson. You know him as TobiWan. Toby, thanks very much for coming on the show. And we're going to start because big announcemos have been made for you. And this was just a few days ago, although we talked privately and sort of had an inkling it was coming. But that you're, after 7 years at one company, joined Dota, Freaks for You, you've decided that you're going to be moving on to being an independent talent. So I'm going to start the interview just there. Obviously, it's current, it's topical. What exactly does that mean?
Well, what it basically means is the parent company I was working under, which was Freaks for You Gaming, they were the guys who set up the project Join Dota. They are no longer my employer. I no longer push all of my work, finances, whatever, through that company. I pump it all through myself and my own setup systems. And basically, that's it. As far as the changes go for my career and where I'm going, the only thing it frees me up to do is own equity in projects that I want to try and create. So maybe a little bit more flexibility, both mentally as well as how do you say, basically it's a little bit more freedom in my life, but it comes at a cost of less support.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big scary thing. I went through this, so I've got some insight. I'm getting old. I don't know if you've noticed. I certainly have. And
well, you're starting to lose your hair, so yeah, I'm assuming you're getting old.
Yeah, that the grey in the beard, the weathered face. I'm feeling my age. And one thing I will say is being out there in the freelance world, it can be terrifying. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of grind. And there's a culture, especially among Counter-Strike talent. And this was true of StarCraft talent as well. If you say no to a gig, you might never get another gig. That one time you say no might be the thing that sets off the chain of events. That means you never get to say yes for a year. And there's this real fearful culture that you've got to grab everything you can. And you see a lot of freelancers burning themselves out. I mean, the audience are like, why is it always the same people at the same events? Well, that's why, because people can't take breaks in the freelance world. Are you a little bit worried about that, because you're coming from an environment where you've pretty much been a fixture, at all the big events, and you've had that job security, and now you're going out there into the big wide world?
I came from the environment that I love. Like, I've always been I like a full-time job. I know how much money I'm going to get at the end of the week, so I can keep a roof over my head, food in my belly, and the electricity on, and internet plugged on. So all of these kind of things, yeah, as long as this is taken care of, I'm not really too concerned with things. So I'm a little bit more wary of it now, but I don't feel like I'm going to come under threat of losing events because I don't say yes. In fact, I kind of look at it from a very different perspective. If you need to keep saying yes in order to keep your job, then your brand isn't strong enough, or what you bring to the table isn't strong enough. So as long as I can still look at myself and say, I bring something that people want, then I should keep getting gigs. And by saying no, it shouldn't be, oh, well, they're not going to hire me again. It's like they're going to find a reason to hire me, because I'm going to go off, I'm going to work with somebody else, and they're going to potentially pay more, so I didn't have to worry about losing that gig in the first place. And I'll do something even cooler, which then makes the other guys go, okay, we need to actually step up our game in order to work with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, competition's weird, though, isn't it? Especially in the world of talent, right? Like, yeah, it's tough. Again, I'll use my experiences in Counter-Strike because I don't know a lot of the Dota talent. Although I have said publicly, I'm on record, and I've said some stupid things about Dota in the past. We talked about this the other night.
Yeah,
but and there are some things I'll stand by. One of the things is that the Dota talent kind of pool seems to be incredibly insecure, which I'm sure is justified for reasons we'll get into. But in the Counter-Strike talent pool, we're all like, we're all friends, but there is too many of us. There's too many people with too much talent, and there's kind of not enough jobs to go around. I mean, there is, but there isn't. We all have to sort of look each other in the eye and know we're bros. We'll go out drinking. We'll have beers. But at the end of the day, I want that fucking final. I want that host's job. I want to be on the analysis desk when the major comes rolling round. And as I said, we've got this abundance of talents and not enough, kind of jobs to go around. I don't know if that's the same in Dota. You know, I do see some guys where I think, like, especially when people bitch about not getting picked up for the international, I do think if you're good enough, you will be at something like the international. I do genuinely believe that.
That's a hard thing to believe, because to believe that means you understand the Valve logic. And that's a very dangerous road to start working down. Like, I think I have a good understanding of what they think, but they could change the developers who are running the international, and then they'll go completely different. And that's why you could have seen at TI7, where almost every single analyst that's appeared at every single event in the year before was replaced, apart from Merlini, and you had the professional players step into that position. So this is that job security you're never certain of. Like, a very talented caster like Capitalist doesn't get used for the main event, only for the group stages. Gods gets left out as well. He could have easily slotted in as LD's co-caster instead of Luminous. Like, there's so many things where you're like, oh, it should have worked this way, but Valve will get one thing in their mindset and they'll choose this. And this is something you can't debate. You can't really push harder, because they're like, we know what we want, and if you're debating this, then you don't understand what we want. So All Talent won't debate that at all. All they can do is just sit there saying, I hope I've done enough to get to the next international. And if I don't get there, I will express disappointment publicly, and then it's down to the character of the person for the way they express that disappointment.
Yeah, and look, I've been there. I've had to miss majors. I love majors. I think, much like the international, it's a great honor to even be included in one. It's the pinnacle of the career, and the reason I feel that way is, like I say, it's not just about reaching the most fans or whatever. It's like, it's the prestigious event. It's the one with the big crowd. It's nice to be part of that. But equally, I've never bitched about not being hired. Like, just never. Look, I've made choices in my life that I'm sure there's some people out there who wouldn't want to hire me, right, for certain reasons. I'm okay with that. I own that shit. And, I saw people at the last international go in public, like, going, I think I could have improved.
Uh-oh. The snow has currently now killed Richard.
He's going to come back from the future.
We all want to be there secretly in our little hearts, right? We all want to be there, but, fucking take it on the chin and learn from it. I think when people piss and moan about it in public, it always leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Okay, let's just double check and make sure Richard's back. Okay, he's back and drinking. Okay, we're good.
Oh, right, good. Sorry. What happened there? Did I like it
again? Yeah. Oh, he's gone again.
Hello.
All right. We can at least hear him. Like, we can at least hear him now.
Right. Hi. I think I'm back now.
There you go. Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
I don't know what that was. I'm just going to blame Skype for that. So anyway, what I was saying was, just in case you missed the first part of that point, was that we all want to be there, we all want to be included in these things, but when you publicly go and piss and moan, I saw some broadcast talent say, I know I would make the broadcast better. I think when you say something like that publicly, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because it should be about the fans, it should be about the broadcast, the show, and more importantly, it should be about the competitors that go. That's what I wish people were talking about on International Day, more than who was there, who isn't. And like I say, I always find that stuff a little bit
everyone wants a little bit of drama, and you can't blame the fans of the talent who get left behind, or the talent who are on camera, or the talent who are disappointing, because the fans are always going to step up and say, I expected this from you. It's almost like looking at a team and saying, well, your results aren't that really good they're not that good at the international. Can you please step it up? A caster goes and doesn't do his best. Can you please step it up? And it's the same level of expectation, which I think is applied. I think it's a little bit heavier in Dota, just because respecting of opinions is held at a very a higher position. I think myself actually almost the only tier 1 caster in Dota who kind of gets away with not having to share his opinions about the game. Like, OD Pixel jumps in here and there and actually shares a decent opinion. And he doesn't like, we're not forced to do this. Like, in fact, we're not even having to talk about draft anymore when we cast main events. We just sit there, the game starts, and we literally just like talk about the game, narrate the game, and then we have fantastic co-casters sitting next to us who fill in all the extra details. So all we have to be is an enabler for them. So there's less pressure, I think, on the play-by-play casters, but there's a lot of drama that everyone likes to bring up when someone doesn't make it. And they'll even bring it up just to cause the drama. And this is mainly because people will also be very disappointed with the overall broadcast. They'll be like, well, why isn't this special? Why doesn't this stand out? Why doesn't that stand out? So on that side of things, I can see the community getting annoyed. And as the communities will normally do, they'll be very vocal about their annoyance. As far as casters or any kind of talent that doesn't actually make it onto a camera, yeah, I've sat there myself and said, man, these guys really suck. I know I could do such a better job than them. But you're going to do that anyway because you're sitting there with like years of experience and knowledge of what you can do, and in your mind, the image of what you can create. And you're like, oh, I could just insert myself into that. This production would be so much better. But the second you start saying that publicly, you start shitting on the people. And the only way, like at least I feel you can do that, and I think it should be done in some ways, is constructive criticism. And it can be directly to the person, but if you don't have it as a direct conduit, find other ways which can be creative to actually tell people about like what they're doing wrong, or at least educate the public. Like I started making a YouTube series about caster education, and like the reason I make an episode is because I see something which gives me that exact feeling of like, oh crap, I could do something better, or I've encountered an issue like this. So it then pushes me to, as a catalyst, to create a video like that. And I find that is my way of handling my frustration when I watch somebody else commentate, is by creating such a thing.
Well, it's interesting. Like I talked about how we're all kind of bros over in the CS scene. And, I think that pretty much as a rule holds true. We all go out drinking with each other. We all hang out as just by way of a, for instance, as I mentioned before we went live, Moses is flying to New York and we got a big storm coming in. He's got stranded in Atlanta. He's coming to my house. We're going to hang out today. It's not like someone we put on for the cameras. We're legitimate friends outside of stuff. I don't know if it's like that in the Dota community. Like the vibe I always got from a lot of the Dota talent was that it was like kind of a little bit fake and contrived, and that there was a lot of kind of fake smiles kind of going on. And I've talked to a few, like some Dota talent does talk to me, certainly not all of them as a rule. But if a few people have said similar things that, it's like as soon as they go into their green room or as soon as the camera's off, they don't really talk a great deal. Is that accurate?
It depends on the talent, depends on the group. You have to understand the Dota talent kind of were born into this world of studio division. So, like, Join Dota came out at the original part of Dota 2. It was the only group that you actually had casting. And when I say group, it was me. Then a couple of others started to appear. There was Dota commentaries, which arrived. This was led by, like, Luminous, Nebula, a couple of other guys are in that one. LD was actually part of that for a time as well. And then these guys kind of became the competitors, but they didn't really do anything live. They did it all off replays. But you then had Join Dota appear. We started doing more and more coverage. Then Beyond the Summit started to appear. Then you could say Good Studio appeared. Then you had like the Captain's Draft guys doing their thing through DC. And you had all these studios come up. Now you've got Moonduck. So you got a lot of different groups which can be very separated. And then these groups have a lot of loyalty inside of them because they're trying to get the rights to cover these events, or they're trying to be the best coverage of this event, the place that everyone wants to go to. And we all know now the monopoly has heavily shifted over to Beyond the Summit. There is small competition coming in from Moonduck, and they're getting better. They've still got a long way to catch up to BTS, but they're getting better. So in some states, you still have the division, and in the mindset, like I know with me, like I was always seen as the face of Join Dota, and it created some hostility between myself as well as some casters. Over the course of the last 3 years, I've tried to work to mend a lot of those bridges. Some of those bridges, not so much. But there's a lot of people who I respect what they bring. I respect what they do. And it's made it very easier to start working more with these people. And I know I'm not the only person who's been doing things like this. You have issues. A talent treats you like crap at an event. And you just you change the mindset when you approach them. So yeah, again though, it depends who you get thrown with. You don't know exactly who's going to be at every single event you go to. You don't get on with everyone else. So yeah, there's probably going to be a couple of fake smiles around, but there's definitely some good friendships also inside the Dota talent.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to talk about this generally. I know I said I was going to start the show by talking about you and this announcement in your career, but I also like conversations to go to where they go to naturally. So the insecurity thing, it's really weird. Like, I've never met any Dota talent that say, oh, we like drama and we like to ramp up drama. But I've met a lot of fucking super passive-aggressive bitches that stoke drama and then pretend they're not about that life, right?
Yeah.
So Nahaz, for example. And by the way, I love that old motherfucker in Mad Men. I thought he was great in Mad Men. The scene where he goes up the stairs and pukes everywhere, hilarious. Love that guy. But he like subtweets motherfuckers, and I'm like, and then he goes, I don't like drama. I don't like drama. Me, I'm like, yo, it's a subtweet. You're causing it. So I never understood
it's hard for him though, because he's always got an opinion. He always wants to express his opinion. And he's always passionate about his opinion.
He should though. So he totally shouldn't. He should fucking own that shit.
Yeah, I agree. He should own that shit. But it's difficult for him because he also wants to remain friendly with everybody. He also wants everyone to work well together, and he realizes that drama doesn't help. But unfortunately, he's really passionate, so sometimes the best reasoning can leave you, and you know it yourself too. Like, you get emotionally hyped up, you get the adrenaline pumping in your system. Somebody just slagged you off, and you're like, all right, we're gonna let's get down to this one. I'm gonna wreck. I'm gonna totally wreck here. And then you do it, and you're like, oh, I really should not have done that. Like, that doesn't help anyone. That's when you just like, you find a close friend who won't reveal everything that you say to them, and you just vent your shit to them. That's the way. That's definitely the way. That's how I've dealt with it.
Yeah, it just seems to me so crazy. It's like, guys, like, you know, this is what I mean. The fear, like, I almost understand it in a way that Nahaz, he wants to look. I think anyone who's worked in an industry, given themselves over to an industry, is entitled to a fucking opinion about that industry. That's why when people say to me, "Oh, you shouldn't be saying that shit," I go, "Nah, I've given up all of my adult life to work in this business. I get the opinion now. I'm a lifer in this business. I get the opinion. Shut the fuck up." That's it. That's how it works, right?
I wish it was like that. People still sit there like I mentioned I was doing some consultancy work for some groups, and I had a lot of replies back saying, "All you do is just talk into a microphone. How do you know anything that can be passed on?" And I'm like, you don't know anything about me or what I've done. Like, you didn't know I started like as a gamer myself. I built up multiple clients. I even frickin' worked on the WordPress site, so I even understand a little bit about how that works, and understood even more when we built the Join Dota website. I was administrator for tournaments. I helped actually train casters. I was like the director of the Call of Duty part in GameStar, which was like the group of casters which were like all band together as a brand in Australia. Like, I traveled to probably more events than anyone in the Dota scene has. Like, I've experienced so many different things, and then these people are just like, no, you're not allowed an opinion. I'm sorry, just because you came in to the gaming world, or how many, 15 years ago, that's not enough experience in order to actually tell people what's good. But if we keep going down this track, then we're going to go into who can actually be an esport analyst and an esport consultant.
Only the fans, apparently. Only the fans.
Only the people that can spell esport correctly.
So here's the thing. You know, I'm talking about all this, and it's very general. I mean, look, like I say, I think Nahaz should express his opinions on social media, and I think he should own those opinions. I don't think he should subtweet and be passive aggressive. And I think all the Dota talent are kind of in this weird position, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first thing was, I remember, which pro started this? You know, there was a big pushback against commentators criticizing players, professional players, in when they made plays in game, and I'm pretty sure Eternal Envy was one of them.
He would have been up there. There would have been.
Oh, he fucking whines about anything. That guy.
Fucking Mad was definitely up there. He was more of a meme during one of the events we did because he called out Purge during the last Epicenter. Right. So everyone kind of turned that into a meme. There's Loda was definitely up there as far as like someone who would call out players.
I remember that. I was deliberately avoiding his name for some reason.
I don't understand why.
Yeah, but no, Loda did it too. There was basically a group of kind of veteran players that were like, commentators shouldn't be critiquing our play, which I find abso-fucking-lutely absurd. The idea that in a game, a commentator can't say, well, I don't understand why they did that. Follow-up interviews and social media can mean that a player can always clarify why they did it, but critique has got to be in the realm of commentary. Now, I will say, perhaps somebody like yourself, Toby, who hasn't been a professional player, might want to dial that critique down, whereas someone in Counter-Strike like Henry G, who has been a pro player, and as captain teams, perhaps his critique is more valid. But I still think both of you have got the right to critique people's play and people's games in the moment. I absolutely believe that. And what I don't understand is how any player could sort of try and publicly pressure talent and organizers. So there's a culture where talent are afraid to do their job. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, but it's looking at it through a magnifying glass when you're only looking at what is brought up in the drama, like what reaches your Twitter saying, oh my God, I can't believe this caster said this and this player has now reacted that way. So a lot of the casters, and you can maybe even go back to the insecurity that is felt from a lot of the Dota talent, you're trying to get your name out there. You're trying to actually prove that people should respect what you say and respect what you bring. And the easiest way to do that is Schoolyard Bully version. And Schoolyard Bully is basically make someone feel lesser than you. Because by doing this, you elevate yourself without having to rise anywhere. You just push someone else down. So this is the easiest thing a caster can do by saying, oh, we shouldn't have done that. And it's just like, well, yeah, well done, Captain Hindsight. Like 2020 vision right here. He walked into Roshan, got bashed by Roshan, and now died. Well, what a surprise. He's dead. But what do you know about that? Like, what do you actually review? Like, if you're going to critique somebody, critique from a place of knowledge. And I'm saying knowledge, it doesn't have to be absolute knowledge. Like, we're not all Sith here. You can basically talk about the fact that this happened because of X, Y, and Z. These are the scenarios here. You disagree with an item build. Okay, well, I'm not certain about this. Like, I would have really preferred to see something like a scythe in this area because we need to disable against the primary core instead of going for a controlling bash, which is more about RNG. And then you actually talk through your comment. Just throwing wildly an insult with no follow-up and no sustain to it.
Absolutely.
This doesn't make sense. And this happens a lot in Dota for amateur casters. And we're having a lot more amateur casters coming in because there's more and more content being produced when you're having qualifiers for so many different regions having to be casted, and the primary casters like the tier 1s and even high tier 2s are just like, I'm already worked out, I'm taking a step back, I'm just trying to relax a little bit, and you guys can cast all of that. And that's the casting which people are now looking at Dota and saying, this is what's happening. And it's not the refined stuff, but it can be taken to the extreme as well, where you start making excuses for every single player that's out there. And this happens when players are your friends, and you want to be friends with the players because you start worrying that, oh, okay, if I say something bad about them, they're not going to like me as a person. And you don't see the difference between like expressing an opinion on a panel and a personal attack. And this is that space of fear that I know a lot of casters, not just in Dota, like it's outside of it. I think CS is just a little bit more blatantly rude. And it's fine for that. Like it's like an Australian conversation. You punch someone in the face and you respect them for it in a way. Like, and I feel like that's definitely the mood more in Counter-Strike. But yeah, in Dota that mood doesn't seem right.
I don't get why it can't be like that in Dota, because look, this is going to sound really bad, okay? But like one of my favorite moments from the first season at E-League we did was when Mo was over. He was standing in for Thorin while Thorin was getting his paperwork in order. And Mo obviously was at one point one of the best players in NA back during the CGS era. He has been the star and now has transitioned into being whatever Mo is these days. And he was on the desk with me. And I thought Mo aced it, by the way. I thought he was fucking great. He was funny. He was entertaining. Not super high detailed, but big opinions, big personality. Perfect for television. And there was a moment where Kusta, this young CS player who was playing for Team Liquid at the time, if memory serves me correct, had an absolute stinking game. and he was like the young starlet, you know, the guy that was meant to be carrying him, the AWPer, and he was a pretty expensive purchase when they bought him from Selfless, if I remember rightly. And he had this terrible match. And as he was standing up with his headset off so we could fucking hear everything, Mo is just wrecking him. Saying what a bad game he had. He was meant to put the fucking team on his fucking back. Why didn't he do it? He made all these mistakes. It was absolutely fucking terrible. And Kusta's face, you know, this is a kid still, like he's 19 or something. And like, it's all just crumpled and horrible, and he's sad, and he can clearly hear him. And I think even like people are like, boo, it's like, stop Mo, he's already dead, you know? I thought that was fucking great. I thought that was great television, great entertainment. I'm sorry, if you're a professional athlete in any discipline, you have got to cope with being told you had a bad game, you made bad decisions, and people are going to go in on you for that. You know, it's all in the game. It's all in the game. And I look over at Dota, and like I say, I listen to broadcasts now because secretly, you know, I play the game and I watch the broadcasts and all that. And I see players always go, yeah, he did make a mistake there, but I think what he might have been, and it's like they make the excuse for the guy. Don't make the excuse for the guy. You know, if it was objectively bad, don't try and twist your logic so you can find something that makes it sound like he had the right thought process but the wrong execution or something. I think that's dishonest, and I think it's a disservice to the fans, honestly.
In a way, I can agree with you. In a way, I also I agree that a player needs to be able to handle criticism a lot better without believing they need to go on Twitter and rally their fans to defend them or belittle the person who actually made the comment. At the same time, I don't think talent on camera should be able to be put in any kind of position where they can just belittle somebody when it's not justified. Justifying someone as a direct personal attack is not good. If someone comes out and says, I was going to be the greatest, I'm going to make this team absolutely fantastic, this is what I'm going to do, and then underperforms and gets criticized for it, then it's the same thing as you said about us. Like stand by your words kind of thing. Like you're going to stand by your own words as a player. Stand by your own actions. You make a decision. This is something you need to stand by. And don't just say like, okay, yeah, things went bad. I'm just trying to stay in a good mental space so I can come back for the next game and move on. Like, again, like this can happen to anybody as well as even casters. Casters get like we look at Twitch chat during a game. Oh crap. You need a lot of mental fortitude to keep casting and being positive about things. So it's, for me, it's more of just the mindset that comes from a lot of social communities going hammer and tongs at each other, where they're all trying to defend the person they love.
But I mean, to just be more pointed about the question before I move on to the next one, are talent scared? That's what the community say. That's what the Dota 2 community believes. You know, I go to the Dota 2 subreddit, the fucking Valley of Memes, and I scroll through it, and there's a recurring belief among the community that talent are afraid. They're afraid that if they criticize a player, the player will set their fan base on them. They're afraid that if enough pros front up about what they're saying, maybe they don't get hired. And let me tell you, that's a pretty valid fear, because we had teams and players try and do that to me and Thorin back when we used to be the analysis duo. And it was like Gfinity's Angels, and then me and Duncan transitioned into having a partnership at other events. DreamHack, which, I mean, that relationship went south anyway, but DreamHack were approached by multiple teams who, for the sake of their dignity, I will not name, but I know who the fuck you are. And they said, yo, if you keep hiring Thorin and you keep hiring Richard, maybe we don't enter your tournaments anymore. Maybe we don't come along, because they shade them bad words about us. So it's like, you know, maybe it is a valid fear that could fucking go on in Dota. So, again, just to be on point, are talent afraid of criticizing players?
Well, the answer is always going to be yes. But the easier thing to do is just don't give communities ammunition to shoot you down. If you're going to do it, like, do it strong. Stand by it and be thorough.
All right. So, look, the next thing. The Too Good incident. That must have scared some people.
Right? I'm surprised you bring this one up.
No, well, here's the thing. I've been trying to get James on the show, but like trying to pin James down to a fucking date. You know what I mean? It's like one of them live frogs.
You'll have to catch him on the Quake Champion stage, stealing all the money so he can fund his own game. That's where you have to find James.
Yeah, but he is going to come on. He has said he's going to come on, and obviously I'll hear it from the horse's mouth. But look, I mean, whatever your thoughts about what happened with the Too Good incident, some people have had, very extreme reactions to it, that it was wrong that he got fired and fired in such a public manner. You've got people on the other end of the spectrum who say what James was doing was absolutely unprofessional. You listen to your producer, you follow the flow of the show. It doesn't matter if you disagree with what the producer's telling you to do in your ear. You do it. That's your job. And then you've got people in the middle who go, this was just about poor communication that was poorly handled upon all sides. Now, there's probably a bunch of opinions in between all of that. But one thing I do know is...
And none of them would have actually been there or known exactly what happened when they made these opinions.
Absolutely. But one thing I will say is that after that, there was Dota talent saying to me, well, if they can do that to Too Good, they can do it to any of us. Fuck me. Like, we're just living on tenterhooks now.
Yeah. Oh, we start living on tenterhooks when Valve give us the schedule for events day by day by day. Which is actually what happened for a short period of time. I say a short, like just over a year. Every Valve major, we wouldn't know the schedule until 11 p.m. the night before. And so we didn't know who was on panel, who was on casting, because they wanted to see who the teams would be and who performed well the day before to try and keep us a little bit on our toes. So we didn't know what was going to happen. With the James incident, like it's... so many people had opinions about that. Valve knew what they were hiring when they hired. And then other people at Valve had regrets. But this is going to happen in a company which has a lot of individuals who are all meant to be on a very similar tier. Someone will have a difference of opinion. They'll move over. And then Gabe Newell speaks up. And now this is now law. This is Bible. We will put it into the book of Gaben. And we should now live by this. James is an ass. Do I agree with what happened there? No, I do not. I believe Valve knew what they were going to hire. They signed up for this. And they had to go through it. Do I believe in like him being taken off the panel? Yeah, some of the stuff James said it crossed a line in some points. Like he went a little bit further than James has normally gone. I agree. At events, and on that front, I cannot blame Valve for removing him in such a public way. Going on to Dota 2 Reddit, having Gabe himself post, it was an emotional reaction. Like it's the reaction that we've just been talking about. It's like communities coming in to defend the people that they love. Gaben just jumped in and said, this is now the way it is. But because it was on such a high level, the community loves James. James did so much for Dota 2 through the Good Studio, through the work he did at DreamHack. He did so much that people need to actually respect this. And the community did respect this. And Gaben, in a way, kind of like shat on James, shat on everything that he'd actually done for Dota 2 because he made a whole bunch of like offensive jokes, which is James in a nutshell. So you know what you hired, you got annoyed with what you hired, you publicly fired him in a way which was just as unprofessional as kind of what James crossed the line in China. So you sit there on both sides going, okay, there's a lot of blame to throw around. No one is perfect in all of this. James was put in a bad position as well. Key TV was messing up production very heavily. You can say, oh, you should listen to your producer. The producer was Chinese, who was then translating to Bonnie, who was then translating to James. So you can imagine a producer in real time saying, hey, James, let's do this, then tells it to Bonnie, then Bonnie puts it into translation, hope this doesn't get screwed up anywhere along the lines, then James says something back, it goes back to the producer through Bonnie, and you're like, okay, well, where the hell does everyone stand now? I don't know how we're keeping up with any of this. So it was bad conditions. I don't think anyone's going to say the Shanghai Major was a clean event in any way, shape, or form. But this is just what happened. Both sides were to blame. I think James comes off the worst of it because when someone as powerful as Gaben comes out and says something like this, it really fucks him hard. So I feel so sorry that James was put in such a position. And I'm annoyed at Valve for doing such a thing. But a lot of things that went down were blame on both sides.
I mean, look, so there's a lot of thoughts around that incident, right? Some believe that actually by having such a public and emotional, as you put it, display of getting rid of James actually covered all the perfect world bullshit that was going on. and it was the art of deflection, you know? It was very...
It was the thing, right? Like we're firing James and we're firing Key TV. So one thing you probably don't want, one thing you do want. But then we just got another group who then fell asleep with the cameras at the main event and gave us even more problems. And there's just so many things that went wrong in Shanghai.
Yeah, and just to play devil's advocate as well, you know me, I love a fucking edgy joke and I like to speak my mind. I was watching that at the time and I was like, nah, dude, James, no, please. Like, well, you got to dial this back. You got to take it back to an 8, brother, please. Like, please go to 8. Just set it to 8. That's all you have to do, and you're gonna be fine.
He went full 10. He went full 10.
Dude, like beyond. It was Spinal Tap. That motherfucker went up to 11. It was unreal, and I was like, please stop. Like, just stop this. Like, I talked about this recently on the stream when I was talking about my fuck up with the loader thing. How there was multiple opportunities to get off the merry-go-round. I could have got off. I could have not been confrontational on Twitter. I could have gone and told that when DreamHack came over and talked to me, I could have said, yo, I think this guy wants to beat me up a little bit instead of trying to flex back at him. When Kelly came over to shout in my face, I could have just ignored her and walked away instead of shouting back. When, there was like opportunities to get off the wild ride, but I didn't take them because I was a fucking idiot and wasn't really thinking about what comes after. I was just thinking about, well, yeah, at least to keep my Twitter rep or whatever, I could see James was in that position. You can get off now, and it's not going to be. You can, and now get off now, dude. Like now, I'm telling you, it's going to crash if you don't get off now. And I just wish, I know a lot of people say like, oh, he rescued the show and he was the only good part of the show, but like. I just don't think he was treating it like it was beyond the summit when it was a fucking major, You got to understand what the broadcast is in terms of tone. And I think that was James's mistake. And, I've said it to him. Like, James knows I feel that way about it.
Yeah. But I think also, like, because I know there was dialogue between James and Val before that saying, like, you do know, like, what I do and the way I bring it. Are you comfortable with this? So, like, he said that, I believe, in his notes that he wrote directly after the incident. So it's like they knew what they were getting when they signed up. Like if I signed James up for an event and he did a lot of that stuff, I'd be like, oh, I didn't know I was getting that much James. I'm happy with just the tip of James.
So look, back to the main point, because I didn't necessarily want to dissect the incident, but I just wanted to talk about the effect that had on talent. Your talent. And Too Good's this huge name, huge brand, done so much for Dota 2, beloved by the community. And did that incident there have this profound chilling effect on the talent?
On a lot of talent, yeah. When we found out about it, we're just like, holy shit, I can't believe that actually happened. And of course, you're going to start watching what you say on every single stream. But I think for me, I felt more of an influence of that into who actually gets selected to come to these events in the future. Valve will now be more critical of who actually gets to come. And it also comes down to like what you do during an event. It's not just enough to get hyped for an event and knowing you'll do it the entire thing. Like day by day, you could be gone. And the same thing was happening in earlier TIs as well. Like Nahaz came on, did I think one day on the panel at the main event of TI and then never appeared again. And this is Valve just saying like, yeah, we just don't think you're working or not working with the people we want, or it's not creating the right mood you want. So you're never totally certain with that. And I feel sorry for all the other talent in Dota, mainly because I don't feel like I've been subjected to this type of pressure. Because I come on, I commentate, and unless I say something really fucking stupid, like, hey, LD got away with ding, 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 motherfucker. Like, you can do a lot as a play-by-play caster, and you'll have very little repercussions from Valve. The only thing you need to do is bring the energy, bring the entertainment, and don't be a twat. As long as you can do these three things, you're going to be in a pretty comfortable position. And then it's just down to, is your brand, is the desire to have you there, and is it the mood that like your employer is looking for? In this case, it would be Valve. Like, is that what they're looking for? Yeah, I can do all of these things. Fine. I also have the advantage of being the first, which puts me in a very strong position. Like, I've done every Dota major event, all the TIs. Obviously, I can be one of the few people that say that, considering there are only 2 casters at TI1. So it's a little rigged. But I've been at all these events. And if they remove me, then I think there's going to be more of a kickback for Valve than I believe is going to be worth for them. So on that front, like, that's why I don't feel uncertain about it. I'm not saying I take it for granted at all. Like, I still make sure that I'm bringing the best performance I possibly can. I'm putting myself in the best mindset, the best condition in order to actually bring what I bring. But it's not something I want to think about until it becomes a problem. Because I don't want to be Mr. Doomsayer. Like, I try and be the positive and happy, energetic guy when I'm commentating. If I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, the world is doomed," I'm not going to bring what I bring. So it's only crippling me by worrying about something. So I live in the world of bliss until someone brings me down.
Yeah. So why do you think it's you that has been to all of the internationals? I mean, sure, like you said about TI1, obviously a bit of a rigged deck for that one.
Yeah.
But, why do you think you're the guy that gets that accolade? Because I remember when we did the documentary stuff that we filmed together for Free to Play, the re-showing of Free to Play we put on TBS.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, holy fuck. I was like researching some stuff, and I was like, yeah, shit, Toby's been at them all. Fuck me, that's crazy. So why do you think that is?
Well, it's the mindset that came with the original TIs. So TI1, TI2, and TI3. Everyone was being invited as a thank you. So when the press were brought in, it was thanking like groups like Go2 Gamers or Join Dota for doing like good coverage of their scene and doing something for the scene. Special people were being invited in to say thank you for the hard work they did. And as far as doing hard work for Dota, I was pretty well up there. Like, I was casting day in, day out. I was basically living in the studio for a good 3 years. And this was just... I think like that's why I'd be there at the very originals, because I was always there. A lot of people enjoyed what I brought. People were very very familiar with what I brought. If there was a big game that was being cast, yeah, it was probably my voice that was attached to it. Like, you introduced me at the start of this thing saying many of the voices of Dota, where back in the days I was the voice of Dota. Now there's a lot of other people who have stepped up, and I haven't moved. I had a couple of hiccups with my reputation. But as far as my casting abilities, sometimes I move backwards, but then I try and take 2 steps forward directly after it. And I think now I'm in a good position where everyone's very comfortable with what I bring. There'll always be someone who comes in and creates something which is different and unusual, because a fresh flavor is always a good flavor. But then do you always come back to the primary flavor? That's kind of what I hope for. My primary flavor doesn't get too bland.
Well, I mean, you right. So I did another show. Shit, I can't remember which one it was, but I was talking about commentary in general, the art of commentary, and how one thing I always hate about commentators, and this is in any sport, when they're trying to force that line, when they know shit. If I say this, it's gonna get clipped and it's gonna be in all the highlight reels. No. Hey, I'm not accusing you of that, brother. No. But you, I know when people are doing it. I've been around commentary now long enough. When you hear people like going, "Oh, and it's the one," it's like, and they're just saying wild shit, and you're like, guys, like this is too much. This is too forced.
It's never the greatest play I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, it's like some fucking piece of shit CS game at 4 a.m. between 2 fucking teams that no one's heard of. You know, one player's been VAC banned 8 times, and you're talking about it like it's the final of a major. You know, like I get why people do it, because it's one way to kind of launch your career. But the people who legitimately get those iconic moments without forcing them, that's when you know you're dealing with a master craftsman. Yeah. And if I remember rightly, I mean, shit, like, obviously you've got it's a disaster, but you've got a few, right?
Yeah, but I never force them. Like,
sure.
So for me, like, this is a big core part of when I commentate. I want to not only respect the game that's being played, I respect the people who are watching. And if I'm dead out lying to them right now, like, I'll give you a pill that will bring you back down to 70 kilograms and you'll be insanely muscular. This is what I'm trying to shove down your throat. I know it's a lie, and the viewer knows it's a lie. So why would I sit there and go, yeah, have my lie and think of it as a truth? I'm not going to do that. So you never lie to somebody. Now, of course, you can pad it a little bit. You can change the tone. And I know there's some groups, like I think ESL actually has something like this, where they have color-coded words. So you have like green words, yellow words, red words. And the red words are for the real hype moments. Yellow moments are for like intense, but not the greatest moments. And the green words are just positive words you'll add in when so, like, it was a good play, like green word. So you have these type of things. And in your mind, like, yeah, you can prep yourself. You can have these words. It's like, well, if I ration myself, I need to have 4 red words per cast. Like, this is just going to be a real shit position for you because nothing naturally flows. You don't think about what you think too much about what you're doing. You don't understand the rhythm of the cast, the rhythm of the game. You just sit there and it's like, okay, now it's time for me to force it. A fight's about to begin, so let me just scream at a microphone. Like, what are you doing? Like if I'm going to scream at a microphone, it's because legitimately I'm feeling that my roller coaster ride's ready for a bit of a bump up in adrenaline. This is what happens with me, at least. So I'll raise my voice when I get emotional. I never really scream anymore. Like, I used to scream a lot. And I find myself, I don't do that anymore because I find just a change in tone, a change in projection is enough. And sometimes there's some things which just happen. So it's a disaster, I think a lot of people will probably know of because everyone thought my voice cracked when it happened out of pure emotion. And that's not actually what happened.
Are you sure? It does sound like it, brother. I'm not going to lie to your face.
It's fine, right, man. It's fine. What a lot of people don't actually understand was I was actually a boy soprano as a kid. I had a very strong control of falsetto, even when I came out of being a boy soprano. And my voice was just feeling really good that day. Really good that day. And normally when you push up to a top, it's going to scratch a little bit, and that's when you know when to pull it back down again. I just never topped out. So I just like, my vocal cords are going to go there. Oh, I'm going to go there. And you go with the flow. Like, if you try and force something like that, if you try and replicate that, like when someone comes up to you on the street and says, hey, can you say it's a disaster the way you did there? I'm like, no. And they're like, I can't. I physically cannot do it. Things just need to be right to make that moment happen. Oh. We lost him for a second. Moses tripped over the cable when he arrived.
There we go, he's back.
Welcome back, man. He doesn't know he's back.
I dropped again. Sorry, I was raising my glass.
There he is.
I don't know what's DDoSing me, or it's just the weather here. So I apologize for that. But I could still hear you coming through, talking about when fans, sort of come up to you and they want you to say that it's a disaster.
No.
Which must get annoying, I'm sure.
I just love it coming from a place of truth. That's it. That's the too long didn't read. I just like casting coming from a place of truth.
Yeah. Well, what about being put in the game? That must have been nice. Like, I miss the fucking chat wheel stuff. I used to love. It's a disaster. I used to fucking love it, mate. I used to spam that shit with the fucking airplane noise, like, patience by so all of that. Love that. I'm so sad that we didn't get to keep those, actually. Yeah,
maybe they come back next year. To be honest, I thought we were going to see a new wave of it. This was something I was expecting from Valve, and it never really came. Like Frostivus arrived. I'm like, oh, okay. So we don't have the majors anymore, but I'm assuming we'll have like battle passes that will be seasonal. And this is the way Valve can raise their money in order to pay for the majors that they're putting money into. And nothing came. Like Frostivus was announced. We had a treasure chest come out. Okay, that's interesting. But there was no event to bind the community together to give us a sense of this is our purpose for now. The purpose is still there through other events, which are on a Dota TV ticket, but they don't really get highlighted inside the game. They don't really get pushed anywhere. And without the battle pass, obviously, there's going to be no voice lines. So it's like, well, what's really going on here? So are we going to wait until the international? We've gone a fair way, and we haven't had a battle pass. Maybe we have a mid-battle pass that appears, or something like that, a mid-season thing. You just don't know. So it's really, I don't know. It's what Valve did this year with the majors. I agree with the fact that they shouldn't have run any more, because it was moving to a point where no one gave a shit apart from the players, because it was a rinse and repeat. And as we all know, for people who have watched the StarCraft 2 scene, and how it rose and fell, a rinse and repeat is the death of a scene. You can still be professional, and no one will ever say your game is dead because you're like, oh, no, you see this event that happened? It's really, really good. Like, the production level's fantastic. The casters were hyped, the games were good, but then you have one event, and, like, the games are really bad. Yeah. Like, most boringest thing ever. And it can come down to just the meta switch. It could be, like, controlled by whoever, and you'd be there going, man, this is not what I remember anymore. This game's changed. And the second that goes into your head, you need something which is fresh and new and creative to actually push people into a land that is positive when they think about a game. This is the reason why things like Midas Mode and Captain's Draft, basically, like, one of them is the baby of Sir Action Slack, so I know is sitting there in the chat right now watching, and the other one is, well, I'm still going to say it's Sir Action Slack's baby because he kind of makes everything happen there. And that's the Captain's Draft, which is going on literally as we're speaking. So these tournaments get a lot of interest. And then beyond the summit, I think their summits are one of the greatest things ever because it's unique to everything else. Like, it's very hard to replicate. Dream League was also very similar. They tried to go for the meme league. And then everything else is just going to be a rinse, repeat coverage. And this just blands everything. And it makes you as a talent as well wonder. It's like you're saying before, like the CS guys, they always want to be hosting, like casting the finals. Dota talents sit there and go, I'm just happy to cast whenever you tell me to cast. Like, I'm here for the games, I'm here for the fun, and I'll just go with this.
Yeah, I mean, it is, like, obviously you can't sort of compare all esports games to each other. They are very different culturally and in terms of how, broadcasts and stuff work. But yeah, look, I always liked the major system in Dota. I liked what it brought to the table. I don't know, again, if this is like my Counter-Strike poisoned mind.
Yeah, you sit there going, why can't I have all this wonderful funding the Dota's got into my tournaments as well?
Oh no, look, I don't mind that at all. I'm on record as saying this, by the way. While I would love something like the International for Counter-Strike, would love that. And I'm pretty sure the idea has been floated over at Valve headquarters. I don't have that inferiority complex about Counter-Strike that a lot of people do. I don't like the memes about, they've got the janitor working on Counter-Strike and 500 people working on Dota and all this gibberish. It's all lies. It's complete nonsense. At the end of the day, anybody who knows anything about Valve knows that is bullshit. But I liked the major system because I like the idea of having, high points of a season sort of make it a bit more cohesive and easier to follow, right?
But
and I think that's important.
As a man that reviews all this kind of stuff, you got to know the devil is in the details, and the details we're missing. We're lacking a large amount of quality control. Just by raising money, you could have the privilege of being a minor or a major, and this is where things fell apart in my mind for this season. It's the fact that anyone can just raise the money. How many people have actually pulled out of saying they're going to do majors? They're going to do minors. Like, there's so many people who are just like, okay, yep, we're done. We can't do this. Or we're going to change our dates. We're going to change our location. We're now going to do this instead. Or we're just not going to do anything. Problems of corruption, which could potentially be there. Like, is this group actually doing what's really right? And then it's the other problem of you're taking all of the money and pumping it into the prize pool in order to buy the honor of being a minor and a major. What's left for production? What's left for everything else? There's no infrastructure being built. The players are the biggest winners out of all of this. There's more qualifiers. There's more opportunities across the board. This is fantastic. There's more prize money floating around consistently throughout the year. This is fantastic. But the infrastructure of Dota was ripped apart when you started having Dota majors being white labeled. When groups like ESL were just like, this doesn't make any sense for us to do anything because we don't get any real credit and we have no control over what we're actually doing here. We're just basically being the puppets of Valve. And then you actually got that. You got PGL to come in and they were the production team. So it was presented by PGL and they took care of a lot of the things. They took care of a lot of the direction and they formed this relationship with Valve, which put them in a really, really good position. But at the same time, PGL with the biggest winners, where was everyone else? Where are all the other competitions starting to rise up and say, it's worthwhile for us to create content in Dota? These don't exist. And now you've pulled away that system and said, okay, we'll give power back to the third parties. And the third parties have been burnt before. Why would they want to get involved again?
Yeah, and I can understand that. Again, one of the key things, obviously, is the revenue stream, the monetization potential, sponsorships, people, numbers. Obviously, we all love a fucking big dick measurement in esports with this number, that number, fake numbers, Chinese numbers, whatever.
Sorry, we boast 100 million players a month, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So, we all love that. We all thrive on that in esports. But, that being said, again, I think it comes down to there is a weird culture in the Dota 2 community about what kind of content they like, what kind of content they'll support, and what kind of content that they will not support, right? So, I mean, I'll talk about this with Duncan a bunch. Like, Thorin has said to me, I'll make Dota 2 content when I want to make Dota 2 content, and he's got a cursory interest in the history of the game. Don't think he plays it like I do, but he has made several interviews, videos, opinion pieces, his online editorials. It's just universally downvoted. The talent tell him, stick to your own game, buddy. Another reason why I think that the talent is insecure. The community universally downvote it and say Thorin's an ass and all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I would understand this if there was somebody else doing the exact same thing. But I don't see that. And I certainly don't see it on the front page of the Dota subreddit. And I don't know who it would be. And if you can point me in the right direction, I'd love to see it. I like...
Nahaz is as close as you get.
I mean, he's as fucking dry as a cracker, mate. I can't... by that, I mean a Jacob's cracker biscuit. That isn't like something I picked up while I was down in Atlanta, Georgia. His content's a bit too dry for me, is what I'm saying, right? But Duncan has a lot of personality in it. You don't have to agree with what he's saying, but it's a conversation starter. It's like that. So Sir Action Slacks, like his content, Lawgasm. If he came up with that name and nobody had ever done it before him, motherfucker's a genius. That's one of the best names ever. But it's not the same as Duncan's content. Long-form interviews, roundtables. I don't see a lot of this. And it's for all the reasons we talked about earlier. So why would the community be resistant to somebody, even if you don't necessarily like them, producing that kind of content? That blows my mind.
No one would be resistant to that. Once it gets a following, everyone will judge at the very, very start because it's again a thing of respect, right? You got to respect where is the content coming from? Is it coming from someone that I actually care about? Now you're gonna have the oldest knee jerk in the book, Dota, League of Legends. Let me just kick it. That's what's gonna happen. And until someone's able to stop long enough to say, I'm gonna stop and listen, watch, and care about what's being said, then you're not going to get anywhere. And that's the biggest hurdle you got. Someone tunes in, and in the first 10 seconds, you have to capture their attention to keep their attention. So if you can create content that does this, fantastic. Now, you don't really have that in the Dota scene because the only people who do it, if Thorin wants to put an opinion piece out in Dota, it's probably going to end up on Reddit because there's some kind of controversial thing that he said at some point. And the title of it is then going to dictate how you actually watch the video, if you even watch the video. You'll end up just debating the comment in the Reddit title and not even watching the content itself. So this is where I feel Dota is a lot weaker compared to other games, where there isn't a lot of external content that comes out. Now, you look at some of the content, you had Merlini doing some things, Nahaz does some things, Purge does some things. Who else really goes out their way to make things?
I mean, you got Skim, who I've seen on a few things. Duncan's trying to give him a platform. Seems like a smart kid. I talked to him a little bit, But again, his stuff doesn't trend. People would rather upvote a Thorin video to downvote a Thorin video than just upvote something Skim does.
Okay, so your problem you have is you put someone like Skim on the front lines and say, okay, present this opinion. And he may have a really, really good opinion, but the way it is presented maybe isn't so great. It's not enough to have like what we have here, where you've got one camera and two camera, and then a title, The Richard Lewis Show. Yay. This overlay is not enough to do it. You need to actually capture people's attention when you're educating people. That's actually why I'm going to toot my own horn again on this thing. I felt like there was this was lacking, and I actually tried to do something, and I couldn't do Toby's thoughts because Thorin already has his thoughts. So I have Toby Talks instead. Yeah. So And it's just me sharing my opinion pieces. And I started just doing it where I was just in hotel rooms recording it on my phone. And I'm like, I wish I could take this to another level. And one of the guys who actually helps edit for Perch came over and said, I'll help add like supporting like content like to the left or right of you. And we can do more of these things. And like content like this and just being able to have the confidence to stand out there and give your opinion is already a start. But you need to do it in a way where you're going to capture people. Now, I have an advantage because I have a following behind me. So I get that. Skim doesn't have that advantage because everyone he worked with before was another brand. Like he wrote for somebody else or he worked with somebody else. Skim doesn't really stand out by himself. He's never appeared on a panel as any kind of analyst. He doesn't have a big social profile for this. And the only way he's going to get that is by like professional players or people with these social profiles giving him that extra push. This is the only way you can do it. And even then, you still have to make the content really nice to digest. Just making it controversial isn't enough because you're just going to be a Reddit thread and your content won't actually matter. So I feel like that's kind of the biggest problem in Dota, the fact that everyone's kind of too lazy to go the extra mile to make this kind of content. And it's also almost stems back from a lot of the sponsorship that just doesn't exist for either on-camera personalities or just in Dota in general, because people don't want to see this kind of stuff. They want to have a highlight reel. They want to have hype moments. They want to have a tournament. They just want to have a personal stream. I just want to watch Arteezy for 10 hours. How do I now make content here? Well, I may as well just rip the best moments of Arteezy. It'll be like taking all the great like PUBG moments of Shroud and just throwing him into a highlight video. Hey, I just made $1,000 off Shroud. Isn't this amazing? So much of it is just cheap, easy content, and no one's making anything which is quality and will stand the test of time.
So with that in mind, then why? Because you've been involved in the business end. You've been out there rustling up these sponsors and that kind of thing. So why don't people want to sponsor Dota? Why would another esports title be more enticing, for example? Because
what's attractive about it? Like you got a community which is known as one of the most toxic ever.
Totally not true, by the way. I mean, look, me and the Dota 2 community have had our differences. As I said, I've said some shit I stand by, and I've also said a bunch of goofy shit. And I'll admit, I said it just to get a reaction, so I can't complain about getting that reaction, right?
Yeah.
That I did it because I hate circle jerks and the fucking constant circle jerk around. Oh, Dota 2, it's like Rick and Morty fans back in 2013. Well, you have to have an IQ of 200 to play this guy. Fuck off, mate. I'm bored of that, right? So I just wanted to rustle some jimmies, but obviously I did rustle jimmies, and now I'm dealing with that Jimmy rustling.
Yeah.
5 years down the line.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's definitely changed over time. I actually
it ain't the most toxic community.
I don't think anymore. I think at one point we were very close alongside of CS:GO, but there's a lot of other communities which have built themselves up who are definitely more toxic now.
Absolutely.
But you also have that other thing where it's like, okay, the game is really complicated to understand. Now, both League of Legends and Dota are actually fighting this war when they try and put themselves on like mainstream TV, and you're like, okay, well, is this even going to happen? Working with the E-League guys all the time. Like you sit there going, okay, well, what would we actually put on our screens? When we put Dota, I don't think anyone who watches our stream, like our thing, would understand it or be able to understand it from the mainstream audience. So no. It doesn't make much sense.
I think there's a way to do it, but the level of investment required and the level of content required, it probably isn't worth it. You would have to be so dedicated to the idea of bringing Dota to a mainstream audience. And I wish somebody would do it because, I think about content ideas all the time. I think about how about this for just an idea, instead of when you do like a lineup and we talk about like the players. And it goes, oh, this is this player, and he's a carry, and and this is his prize money, and these are his stats in the tournament. Instead of doing that, what you would need to do for a TV audience is like, oh, look, he's picked Sven. What does Sven do? And then you've got to run a little video about Sven, and these are his abilities, and this is what he specializes in. And then you go back to the next hero that gets locked in. And you would have to basically do this repeatedly, intersplicing games with like mini documentaries about items and heroes. And you would need to run this for years to educate, but it could be done.
That's why you just do. That's why we do what Riot did, who just went into schools and started educating them as a course you can run at high school, how to play League of Legends. These kids are growing up with it. They're literally jumping into the earliest generation possible, the ones who are about to come into a world with money, the ones who can then tell their parents about it. And look, all the parents now are wondering, what is this computer game course which is being done at our school? I better look into this. And then their kids start teaching them because they want to try and be involved in their kids' education. They're at least thinking about this type of stuff. But Valve is very hands-off, so of course they're never going to do this. But it's the issue, right? It's the issue of transition. And it's not just transition, I think, of the game from one version to another. I think it's the transition of what we see as the viewer base, as the community of esports. And I'm saying esports is a general thing. This is what's going to be pushed out there because an esport game will last for 8 to 10 years. Yeah. And this is a good esport game that will last that long. Others will be shorter than this. You're always transitioning to the next game. So once you're in the hub of I like competitive games, I understand what competitive games are, and your game starts to die off, you'll look for something new. Or your friends will be talking about something new. So you see the transition into something that's more simplistic, but still has a depth. That's what gives CS, I think, a really strong power base. Because the simplistic thing is pew, pew, boom, boom. That's as simplistic as you can get for Counter-Strike. Dota, it's a lot harder to be that simplistic. Same for League of Legends. PUBG, we've seen as a huge rise to levels all Steam users now just hail to the PUBG kind of thing. Yeah. And I think this is happening mainly because it's very easy to understand what you do. You jump in, you survive. You pick up weapon, you kill somebody, you live longer, right? So this is what happens, but there's still a depth inside of it that can, if handled properly, can be transitioned into competitive games. So you find more and more games like this is where people will start to transition to because it's easier just to jump in, enjoy it, and move on without having to invest a lot of time and a lot of money in order to do this.
Well, look, here's what I'm going to do, because, again, as you probably noticed, I did mention I'm an old man. So I've had 3 bottles of water on this podcast, and you know what that means, right? That means I've got to get up and do an old man piss. So I'm going to do that quickly. When we come back after this very short break, we're going to talk more about you, what the future might hold, and some projects that I know you've got lined up that you want to talk about. So thanks to everybody. Just hold tight. We'll be back in just a few moments. All right, welcome back. So, as I did say before that impromptu break, we were going to talk more about Toby and projects he's got lined up for the future. We've kind of swirled around the melange and the craziness of Dota events and Dota talent and talked about some hot button topics, but let's be a bit more pointed and focused.
They were such happy topics. Thanks, Richard. Happy topics.
I keep it real, I'm never going to be the guy to come on and have a bunch of PR bullshit. That's not my style. And I always, in the same way that we talked about, you got to do right by the community. I always like to think when I do interviews with people, I ask the questions they would ask if they were in the chair I was in. I don't shy away from that stuff. But now we do get to talk about something that I know is going to be a bit more immediate and on your mind. And that's going to be what are you going to be doing now? Because obviously you are independent, but it's not just about going into the freelance pool and saying, hey, you can pick me up now.
Yeah.
It's going to be about, I'm actually going to try and, make some money and bring something a bit more to the Dota community in the form of businesses and stuff. So what have you got?
It's about challenging myself and moving forward. So in my brain, I got a lot of ideas of what I would like to do. And I kind of just lack the structure and the support in order to build this kind of stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of people which I've been meeting over the course of the last year to 2. A big shout out to her. I know who she's listening right now, my girlfriend, who's been very supportive and also helping me see opportunities where I haven't seen them before. But I kind of have all these crazy ideas that I think could do really, really good. And it's not just ideas to benefit myself. One of the biggest things we're working on right now is something I started as a consultant in, and now I'm joining up in their primary team to do it. And it's a project which is basically the underlying part of it is to bring funds to people who are like myself, who just have ideas, who want to create content. And the people who create better content, they're able to find this funding, and it can come from both community side as well as through primary sponsorship. So it's just making a catalog to help connect the two of them better together, and we're doing that through the blockchain world. So that's That's my new project called Best Matter. So I'm looking forward to this hopefully taking off properly.
Okay, so have you got any like spoilers? Drop on us about Best Meta, because I mean it's a name that sounds very Dota. Well, I don't want to use the word MOBA. That's a faux pas.
No. It's gaming.
Yeah.
It's gaming.
Yeah, it's just gaming centric.
Yeah, because it's like every game has a meta, right? So like the idea behind this is you actually find people who have ideas in the gaming world. Like we could hope this idea is really like. We can transition this out to almost anybody, but like we're focusing on the gaming market because personally, I look at it and go, there are so many great ideas that never see the light of day because the sponsorship money is soaked up by something else, which doesn't really do something really great. So find a way to bring more money into the scene and then have people respected for what they have created and respected for the image of their brand that comes along with it. So this is what we're working on.
Okay. So what's the process? Can you are we at that stage yet where we can? It sounds like something I've got great ideas, Toby.
Yeah, you do. This show could be sponsored, right?
Right, exactly. Why? So how do I get my money?
That you can find out a little bit later.
Okay.
So the full announcement's coming out later this month. So obviously I'll be sharing a lot of that, and I'm sure you're going to pick through it very, very. Like editorially, like when we release our full white paper for this stuff. But yeah, like for now, like that's kind of what we're working on. But it's my mindset for 2018 is just to make sure that I'm doing things that I believe make a difference. And for me, like this project will make a difference. Like my educational content I'm putting on my YouTube channel, this will make a difference. That's kind of like all these people have like resolutions for the new year, right? Like I want to do something that makes a difference, and I want to empower myself to keep making more of a difference as well. So when I can build up when I can help build up a company like this, when I can actually have shares inside this, I can take some of that money and then build it into something else, which I think is going to be beneficial. So in my mind, like this is what I want for 2018.
So what else though? I mean, it can't just be about one business, right? Because you're in that twilight. It's interesting. There's a lot of parallels with Anders. Anders is in a similar position where he's got lots of ideas he wants to realize, and he's working on secret projects.
Yeah,
and
blast off.
Yeah, right. And he's finding himself divided because it's like as you take yourself out of the talent thing to focus on the other thing, you kind of find yourself in this halfway house where like maybe you got to say no to a gig or two, but it'll be worth it because I'm going to get this business off the ground and stuff. So how are you going to balance that?
Like I've been casting for so long anyway. Like I want to cast other games as well. Like my plan is for 2018 is also to cast PUBG events because I think this could be a lot of fun. But I also want to be part of like the creation side of this because I see ways that PUBG can be a lot better broadcasting and tournament-wise, like structure-wise. So I'm like, I can work with this. So yeah, I would take less events, but at the same time, like we were also talking about the grind, like the caster grind. Like how many events do I have to do as an independent in order to make enough money that I can keep a roof over my head? Like this is the mindset I really don't want to have. As long as I keep doing successful things, I'm hoping that I will be able to keep that level of income there. So this is my primary focus. Just build up things which mean something. If I'm going to do an event, make sure it actually means something. I'm not just traveling there because like it's a decent pay grade, but the event doesn't really do much for anyone. It's just like we're just trying to run an event because we want to do that. I'm just like, so what are you doing that's fun? Nothing? Well, this doesn't make sense for me, right? Because like it's the dream, right? You do so much work, and like this is kind of the mindset when you have like day rates for events. When you take me away from what is my standard job, you need to pay me for these days that you have me focused on your event, on your project. And when it comes to the point where I can achieve more than what you're actually going to like the equivalent that you're giving me in return, like if I can achieve more by just being at home or working on something else, then I'm going to go work on something else. Like it's just prioritizing what means something to me. So I only want to work on things that mean something to me.
I wish I could be in that position. Because I got to be honest. I've left a lot of fucking money on a lot of fucking tables, and I've had the opportunities to do stuff like that, but I've always kind of like talked myself out of it by saying, "Oh no, the community, they need me. There's not a lot of journalists. There's not a lot of people breaking stories like that. One more year. I'll do one more year. And even when I took the E-League job and I announced, I said, right, I'm not going to be doing any more investigative stuff. All of this fucking loot crate, gambling. I was like, oh, come on, no, please. Like, and it's like I wanted to ignore it, but I had to keep like just looking and rubbernecking, and people were messaging me going to be seeing this site and it's provably rigged. And so I'm sure E-League probably, while they don't mind, I'm sure they would prefer it. I stayed out of like breaking stories like that because it generates controversy. It generates, people coming after me. And, ostensibly I'm a piece of talent that works for E-League now. But yeah, but I couldn't do it. I could never justify quitting and walking away from it. But if I had,
did you need to though?
Because there ain't no money in the medicine, baby. There ain't no money in that shit. There ain't no money in the cure. Like I can fucking come in and tear businesses down 24/7. People say to me who work in esports, "Oh, Richard, you're driving them gambling websites out. I mean, we know they're bad, but look at the sponsorship money they're throwing around." And I'm like, yeah, but guys, they're going to kill us long term. I know you get yours, but they're going to kill us long term. You understand that? Now we got the feds looking at us, like it's not good for the business.
Why don't you inspire other people that can do that type of work? Like how many people want to sit out there? Like you're talking about like Duncan taking Skim under his wing. Like you have someone like this, which you're able to train up. Like why? Like, do you feel like you can, like, if it's a bad thing to pass your knowledge on to somebody else?
No. I mean, I've been doing that for years. Like I say, guys like Josh Raven, Jacob Wolf, pretty much any esports journalist that came out like 5 years ago or whatever, probably worked with me at some point or was trained with me at some point, or I gave them their first job. There's been a ton of them. Not a lot of them stick around, honestly, which is why when I'm reeling off.
But why don't they stick around? Is it the money?
Driven out by the community. Driven out by the businesses. Yeah, I mean the community too, because here's the problem, right? You entertain this fantasy, right, where it's like, okay, well, I'm right. So this happened to me. When was it? Probably it's like 2010 or whatever, 2011. ESL with a big swinging dick in esports at the time. Industry leaders, but it was true then. Love you, ESL, just fucking with you. Industry leaders, right? But what they did was there was a Counter-Strike Source tournament, and you remember Counter-Strike Source. It was the single most played fucking game, I think, at the time for their casual leagues and stuff. And they had this thing called like ESL Pro Series, EPS, and they hadn't paid Counter-Strike Source players because they were running a StarCraft tournament and they were basically robbing Peter to pay fucking Paul. And I saw the email where they literally just, imagine this, they tried to justify to players who had won their tournament, sorry, we know we're late with your prize money. It's going to be 6 months more though, because we got to fly some StarCraft 2 players from China and Taipei to this event we've got, because that's how we do things over there. You guys, you don't get flown anywhere. You don't get hotels. This is StarCraft, though. It's the big game. So I got that email, and I broke that story. And I was thinking at the time, oh, this is going to be great. The community, I think I was in a bad spot at the time with the community. I'd said some shit they didn't like that week. So it was like, oh, this will totally win me back in the favor. And now all the players loved me for doing it. But ESL called my fucking boss and said, what can we do about making this story go away? And fortunately for me, my boss, a guy called Mark Reed, a fucking legend, said, well, is he telling the truth? And I went, well, yeah, it's all true, but can we make it go away? And Mark Reed went, well, no, that's not how it works. Like, So he stood by me on that one. But then I was like, well, okay, ESL are gunning for me. Good old Ralph. All this pressure on me, my employment, my job. The community will love me. Nah. Community didn't love me at all. They were like saying shit like, oh, it's bad that ESL aren't paying the prize money, but Richard is a vulture. He just goes with the negativity. I was like, all right, that's the community. Like, okay, fine, they're idiots. Fuck them then, right? But my peers, my industry peers, the managers and the owners, they'll love me. I'm fighting for player rights. Nah, they don't love me at all. They fucking come around and go, Richard, could you ever break a good story about esports? We can sit around and stroke up.
Richard, can you make something positive in your life? Do something with meaning, Richard Lewis.
Imagine it. So we can sit around and jerk off about how great esports is 24/7. It don't fix any of the problems, and it don't get us to the next level. So I couldn't believe it. And this is what happens to a lot of young journalists. They come in. I was already an old stubborn prick when I started in this business. These are kids. So they come in and they entertain the fantasy of community love and respect among their peers. It ain't like that, brother. Everyone hates you. You're the guy who is right. You're in the elevator where someone farted and everyone can smell it, and you're the guy who goes, "Who farted?" And no one likes that guy. No one likes that guy. We all know there's a fart in the elevator. We just want to go up, get out, get some fresh air. We don't need to be told. We can all smell it. That is the attitude. And unfortunately, none of these young'uns stick around. Like I said, there ain't no money in being the guy who points out there's a fart in the elevator.
Yeah. You know what I would love from you, Richard? Because like this blends with what I'm working on. Like I want people with ideas to be able to create something cool. And like you basically just hit perfectly on a point where it's like, okay, there's a lot of negative articles out there. We've definitely seen a lot of complaints about the positive articles that come out because it's misunderstanding in mainstream media. Why don't you just create a group of these people that you know are good journalists or people you know you can help create to be good journalists and have a perfect balance? Like I know on like Australian TV, they have this stuff where you can only show a certain amount of negative TV for the 30-minute block that you have. There has to be something positive here to keep everybody happy. Why don't you just create that, Richard?
Well, maybe I'll talk to you when you cut me a check. Let's see where.
Yeah.
Let's see where it goes. Oh, not a check, a virtual check. Blockchain.
You'll have to work out exactly how much you need.
Money.
Work out how much you need, man.
Yeah, well, let's do it. So look, there's a few of the topics I want to talk about before I let you go. So obviously, back into the freelance pool. What does this mean for doing other games? Because this is a big thing for me. I hate tribalism in esports. That's why I have spread myself across all of them. I go where I want. Like Kane in Kung Fu. I just wander the esports landscape, fixing things. And you've done Counter-Strike before, to name one.
Really badly, but yes, I have done Counter-Strike before.
I listen,
Dude,
brother.
I was terrible at the PGL Open. The only thing I felt really good at was when I cast that. What's the LAN event in Birmingham that happens every single year that I did with Gfinity, and I cast with Henry G. And you were there as well. EGX. Yeah, I did EGX with Henry G. And that felt amazing. I felt like I was having a really good time casting. I had Henry G just dropping knowledge bombs and having a good time next to me, bouncing off quite fun. Yeah, I fucked up a little bit because I didn't know the game well enough. But when I cast with Sadicist, I think it was just like, it was even worse because it was two play-by-play casters together. It was like the worst way in. And the only reason people asked me to do CSGO before that is because while I was waiting for the Dota game to start at Starlighter, I had the raw feed from the stage coming into my PC. And Starlighter would always run World of Tanks, CSGO, and Dota 2.
Yes.
And the LAN finals went World of Tanks final in the morning, CSGO, and then Dota 2. So the CSGO finals happened, and I was huge fans of the NIP guys. That was when NIP could do no wrong. And then Na'Vi were there, and they could always do no wrong. And then we had Na'Vi versus NIP. It was like, hi! It was so much fun. And I was just there having a ball. I was just enjoying esports. I was enjoying the mood that came with the cyber arena that was there, and just I was actually really sick the first time I cast that, and I took Ukrainian medicine. And for those who don't know what Ukrainian medicine is, it's very stiff spirits. That's Ukrainian medicine. I just sat there. And I was just having a great time casting it. And then at one point, Get Right comes over, because we were drinking the night before. He comes and sits down next to me in the co-caster's chair, and we're just shit-talking about the game, and I'm getting massively hyped over stuff that's happening. And yeah, I was probably overhyping a lot of it, but I was just having fun. I was just having a good time casting. And I think a lot of people looked at that and say, oh man, I really wish this guy could cast main events, but they took it as these little clips. And then I did a main event, and then I was competing with the hype that came from Sadicist. And there's a reason why Sadicist is for me, the number one play-by-play caster in CSGO. The guy brings such creative hype at the right times with the right rhythm that I was the turd next to the diamond, and that was a very weird situation for me because normally like it's me who leads the cast in the Dota world. I'm the one in control, and I had no control during that event, and I just tried to be happy and just enjoy it. But yeah, it was difficult as well. Like there were some other personal things going on that didn't help.
It's interesting it got to that, dude, because I remember when you first sort of tossed your hat into the CS ring, and again, you know, I don't talk out of school, I won't name names, but there was some CS talent that was coming up to me, and they were a little bit afraid. They were like, "Shit, Toby's gonna come in, he's gonna bring his huge following, he's gonna take over."
I had a message from one caster that will definitely not be named when I was casting an event. And I actually had that with Starlight. I was a little bit more public about that when it happened. But there was another moment too when I was casting an event called Tech Labs.
I remember that.
And I was just playing with Freiberg a lot, and I was like, "Hey, Freiberg, do you just want to cast this thing with me? Like, I'm doing the Dota stuff. Like, I feel like just doing the CS as well." And he's like, "Sure, let's go and do it." And I got messaged from the other casting pair, and like at that point, it was kind of like, oh, are we going to be a little bit apprehensive about what's going to go on? And then Tech Labs fell to absolute shit. And we ended up bringing everybody onto the same show. So I ended up having Semler and somebody else come and, like, we were on each other's streams talking about the weird shit that was going on Tech Labs. So it was kind of fun. But, like, the first time around, it was more of a, like, you realize you're stealing food from our bellies. You're stealing viewership from us. Because I was sitting there having all the people waiting for Dota to begin.
Yeah.
And I had all the guys watching me cast CSGO because they were like, it's an English stream with the cameras on site and it's a funny caster. So I got a lot of viewers, and I was kind of ripping a little bit more from the official CSGO English stream. And the organizer was just like, we don't give a shit. Like, just cast whatever you want. So I did it, and I kind of got a little bit of flack from the casters.
I've talked about this a lot. You know, I think one of the next things that we need to figure out is how people will do alternative streams in the future. You've seen like Snipe TV have been doing this. And I love Valve's attitude towards this. You know, Valve put that post out, didn't they, recently about Dota.
It doesn't clarify shit. It actually confuses it more.
I think it's pretty clear to me. It's
not clear. They literally just said like everybody play nice at the bottom of it. I'm just like, report system, everybody. Like,
it's fair fucking game as long as you don't go directly head to head with someone that clearly, you know, if you're a small community caster and you maybe want to cast a game that you can get through the client and you ain't gonna stick like, you know, if it's Monster on one, you're not gonna stick Red Bull on yours. That's playing nice. So
no.
It's clear in my mind.
There's no logos. There's no nothing. There's no branding that can be displayed during the stream. But this can be debated, right? Because the branding is your Twitch stream. What link do I type in? If I go to Richard Lewis Reports in order to watch the next international, and you're sitting here, and somehow you've managed to get like 20 professional Dota 2 players sitting down in your living room just talking about the game. You have a huge brand value in the middle of all of this. No overlays, just raw game. No ad breaks, people talking all the time, raw game. You get away with this. And you can have more viewers than the international does because you bring something that the other people do not. And this is where it starts to get really, really fuzzy. Because you're like, okay, so you're doing all of this. And we already talked before about tournament organizers having a couple of problems because they can't bring in enough money to do this kind of production. And you got a couple of mates coming over, sitting in my back room, just because they're in the neighborhood, and we're just shit-talking Dota the entire time. There's no rules on us either, so we can say whatever the fuck we want to when we're here. Oh my God, the entertainment value's now gone up tenfold.
Agreed.
And then you do it on a stream which has a lot of momentum. Admiral Bulldog was the biggest one for Dota 2. Turns on his stream, doesn't matter what event, he just watches it, and he's already going to have about 15 to 20,000 people watching him whenever he watches a competitive game. When he turns on a basic stream, he'll have about 10,000 people. And then if he becomes the sensation, like he is joined by all the original Alliance players that won the international. And all these guys come on and they start talking about something. This is new, different. It's like what I was talking about before, like when you can be that bland flavor and you hope people come back to you because you still have some kind of like flavor that people want. This is spice. You want that.
I agree, but this is what I mean. This is why I think. So let's say the agreement was that people could the game goes like that's what I love about the Dota system, how they've got it right. Why couldn't I just choose the feed? And we all agree to do one. You've got to watch the game through the client, and then you just pick who you want to listen to. That seems to me to be the way that it would have to kind of work in esports, unless you were going to do a huge monetary deal with a games developer to have exclusivity. And we don't like exclusivity in esports as a rule, right? The community don't like it. The community like choice and competition.
And only the developer can ever create exclusivity.
Exactly. So I think that'd be great. Imagine that. Imagine, okay, if I ever wanted to listen to a Dota game being cast in fucking Twitch emotes, I would definitely put Bulldog on Pepe Hands just over and over again. If I ever wanted to hear that, which I don't, but if I ever did, it would be great to have that fucking option. Or if I wanted some serious analysis, or I wanted to hear you do your soprano thing, I can pick you. I can pick whoever.
But then you find the other debate, right? You find the debate of, okay, so who actually owns this content? Is it the developer? Because this content wouldn't exist without the sponsors coming in to pay for the tournament. And Valve saying, okay, well, we're going to bump up your price pool so you become a minor or a major. Like, that's not enough, because any tournament, any game that has an observer in it will automatically go out in Dota TV. There's no way around this. So no matter what happens, you give your content to Valve. You give your content to the ether. Now, the only thing you can do is not put a ticket on it, which a lot of tournament organizers started doing. They tried hiding their games, and people would have to dig to try and find the in-game. So it was just easier to go and find the live stream instead of like trying to find it inside the game. And this is so the sponsors that made the tournament happen actually get the exposure they need. You actually pull in the statistics, which are able to generate better numbers to get you better sponsors or bigger budgets from these sponsors.
Don't they get around that by having like you can modify the maps, so you got sponsor logos actually
teams only?
That's only for teams. You can't do that for brands.
Only team flags. That's only team flags. The only thing that a tournament organizer can put in is the header during the draft stage, which goes across the top. It's like an upper third, and it will have the name of the tournament there. And you can also put that then inside the game. Which is going to then be a restricted box. But depending on your level, you could just find yourself being in the amateur tournaments or premium or like professional, like whatever. Like you're divided up into three different ones. So if you're not part of the major tournaments, which is right now only minors and majors, you don't exist on the primary list. You get ignored. You get lost.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You get no statistics as well from inside of Dota TV. These numbers do not come to you. So the amount of people who have been watching in Dota TV, you don't even have those numbers. So you can't even value the amount of exposure that you get from this. And
that's
maybe
crazy, though, because that's definitely a feature that's in the client, right? I mean, like, when you watch...
You have to manually pull it. And then there's still no exact numbers that can come from it, because people can come in, they can come out, they're all on different servers. So you need the numbers to actually come in from Valve. You can't just look and say, this is how many people are watching, because that could just be your local server as well. So it's like I believe there's a lot of problems inside of that. I remember asking Valve for these numbers previously. This is when we were running the defense, and they flat out said no. They would not provide this.
That's crazy.
And I'm just like, okay, well, I guess this is what it is. And maybe they have changed their mind since that point. And maybe they are giving this to the current tournament organizers, because I haven't had to organize a Dota tournament in a very long time. But so far, whenever I brought this up with the people who I know are running tournaments, they've never said, Valve are now giving us Dota TV stats. This has not happened.
So, I mean, what do you think the middle ground looks like then? Because that is a unique problem. I'll be honest, I didn't really think about it from that perspective. I thought you would just simply be able to monetize the ticket, and then people could just choose what they want, and that's a revenue stream. But yeah, obviously, without the ability to put sponsor logos and branding in a game on a map, selling it through the client, there is a unique problem there, absolutely. Especially if you can't get the numbers. I'm very surprised by that. So
you never get the numbers from anyone else's stream. Like, I can't take the statistics from Admiral Bulldog's stream if he's going to stream my event, can I? So where do you go there?
Yeah. So so what does the middle ground look like then? How do we get to a good place? Because I think Dota's got a good product. I think it's got a good bunch of talent. I think it's got the interest of people. I think it's got a lot of perks and a lot of support from Valve that other games by all developers don't have. In-game items that theme up thematically, with your event and that sort of thing. That's fucking awesome. I want to see all developers do stuff like that, commemorate big events with actual in-game items, and we see that in CS and with pick'ems and this kind of thing. That's got to be the way to go. But what can be done kind of in the short term, do you think, to kind of get Dota to a better place where there's more choice for the viewers, but without it fucking over traditional tournament organizers?
It's difficult unless you create a direct line of communication to people that want to create content for tournaments and the tournament organizers. Now, technically, you could do this. I suggested this actually to Eric Johnson back in 2013. And this happened because of our wonderful US streamer, Grant. He was streaming tournaments which were paid for by Own3D TV on Twitch. And this was causing a lot of problems with Own3D TV, obviously, because they were the only ones that were actually giving money to prize pool in the early days of Dota 2. Twitch wasn't going to give us anything at the time. Own3D TV was like, okay, we'll give you $25,000 to run like a defense, and we're like, oh great, we'll go and run this thing then, and you're going to stream it all on ours exclusively. Okay, this is just the price we have to pay. And it came up as just like, okay, so the sponsorship we had, I think it was Razer as well as BenQ and Own3D TV were our three primary sponsors for that tournament. Okay. And these sponsors were getting no exposure, and everyone wanted to watch over on Twitch. Everyone wanted to watch someone else's channel. And you're like, well, how do I protect this? So I mentioned this to Eric Johnson, and I was like, can we find a solution to this? Because I think this is going to cause a lot of problems with future sponsors in Dota 2. And what I suggested was something more like a DVD policy, where you have residential viewing and you have commercial viewing. So when you buy a Dota TV ticket, it doesn't give you the rights to give commercial viewing, but you can actually create a commercial ticket then. And maybe this commercial ticket has different features. Like, that would be the good thing for Valve if they could do it, where you actually have inside the game a system which allows you to approve more commentators. So you can say, these guys are the primary commentators who are inside the game. These are the guys with the commercial tickets creating content. You can also choose from their audio streams if you want to. And the resident and the straight tickets have to copy one of the camera views which is in there maybe. Or direct to camera. It's actually, that's a shit idea. Ignore that one. But you just have you have something which basically mainstreams it. So people are doing this with permission. They can apply for permission, and they can be rejected for it as well. But at least they then know what ground they stand on. Like, did I get through? Did I not? A tournament organizer, if they're like a shit organizer and they don't look at their stuff, something will be automatically approved in the space of 1 week. I apply, and in 1 week's time, I can 100% cast this thing if they do not reject me. So someone can't just ignore it, which can happen a lot in tournaments.
Is this a crazy idea? Like, do I have brain damage? Be honest with me. Because I think 2018 we are going to see it, and I said this in 2016 that it would probably be around about 2018 pay-per-view. I think it's definitely coming to esports. I think it's going to happen. Could this work? Because all the community all love to meme and say Valve only love money. Again, completely not true. They definitely like money. I mean, all businesses do, but there's a lot of labor love in stuff Valve do on the side as well. That's why they still update TF2, for example. So what if Valve agreed with whoever gets the right to host the international, as way of an example? They enter into a partnership with an ESL or whoever it is. I won't name drop either, but big tournament organizer. They run the international, and Valve say, okay, we can go pay-per-view for this event, for the international, the biggest tournament. Because it's crowdfunded, we sensitively understand that there must be a free alternative. The free alternative is in-game. You can watch all of the games, but you get no commentary. You get none of the, desk segments in between. You get nothing. And we're not going to charge you a super high price. We're going to charge you this, and it's very reasonable, about the price of a Twitch sub. You're going to watch the whole international broadcast. And this way, the tournament organizers, you've got that choice. They can do whatever they want. They make money. Valve make money. And the community pay for something. They're all,
It'll never happen.
Something like that couldn't happen.
It'll never happen because it goes against Valve's video policy. Valve's video policy and Valve's mentality around this is, and this is the reason why they try to clarify what they did. They want people to create content around their games. Because by doing so, their games get exposure. The community can then create content. They can create some revenue for themselves. And it's more about giving more and more resources to the community. Valve, they have many, many ways they already make money. But what they also need to do is bring more Steam users onto the platform, keep gamers there. And this is when they can make more money through their store just by having the Steam users, which I believe was one of the big reasons they originally picked up Dota, so they could actually have this user base.
Yeah, but where I was going was, if you're going to give money to get the battle pass and all that stuff anyway, couldn't that be inclusive is your right to watch the televisual?
But then you're assuming that everyone's going to buy a battle pass that would watch the international.
No, but I mean they can still watch it for free on the client, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but then you're ripping apart parts of the game which are good. You're basically just giving them the raw game without the hype that comes with it, without that emotional connection of seeing the players. You're effectively removing what gives more depth to a game than just the game itself. And that's what the attraction of esports, right? You want to know the personalities involved, both on camera as well as playing inside the game, and not just the personalities which I can identify by a hero moving in a slightly different way or doing a cool thing. So I don't think you can do.
So maybe the international's a terrible example for this.
Yeah, I agree.
Fuck the international. Ignore that. Okay,
it can work in other things which are not run by Valve.
But you don't think there could ever be a partnership pay-per-view for a Valve game?
I don't believe so, because it's a contradiction of everything that Valve stands for. And if there's one thing we know about Valve, they will always defend what they stand for.
True, absolutely.
But you could have pay-per-view on on League of Legends or anyone else that wants to just step up to the plate. As long as the developer is in full control of what's being created, then options like that are possible. Selling rights for regional coverage. This is possible. Maybe that's something else we look at. What happens when Twitch says, okay, we can make it so this stream is only going to be available in Germany because this stream paid for the rights for the German coverage of the LCS. So now is this the world we get to? Because you have it with mainstream TV, right? The mainstream TV, the studios will, the TV channels will pump out into one place, one region, or they'll have the rights to stream out in multiple countries to make sure that they're in clash with anyone else who's creating a similar product. But then you enter the world where it's against everything you're talking about as well, where everyone should be able to create more options for us to watch competitive games from, or any kind of gaming content from. So what do you want to do? Are we stepping into net neutrality right now? Is that the line we're trying to cross?
Well,
how do you protect the guys who are trying to build better and bigger tournaments, creating this type of content, or do you not protect them and just say, you know what, you have to create a product that people want to watch, and it's on you to create something better than the other guy can create. Is that the world we live in? Because in Dota, that's currently the world we live in.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I don't have any of the answers. I've got a very strong feeling in my water that pay-per-view is coming. I also do believe that I think the esports community has had, it wants bigger prize pool, it wants bigger production value, but it wants it all for free. And I don't understand how that's going to work, especially in a world where, as we've talked about, there's sponsorship problems. Sponsors might not feel they're getting the exposure. They know they want to be associated with esports. They know that. They know it's worth their while to be involved with that demographic. But is sponsoring a tournament the way to go? Fuck. I mean, for the amount of money you get for sponsoring some tournaments, you might just be better off buying a company to run tournaments for you to promote your products tangentially through that.
Or you find something which is actually giving you more exposure. Okay, I'm going to spend $500,000 in running a Dota 2 tournament, or I can pump $500,000 into Shroud, and he just has to give me some good exposure on his stream. And for $500,000, I'm fairly certain he'll be pretty open to ideas. So, and I'll reach more people. There'll be probably more people watching my event. I won't have all the PR material I probably wanted from before, but I would reach an effective audience, people that will actually then use my product.
Yeah, and then we get into the horrible world of influencers, right? And that's a whole separate topic. We saw this with the PUBG tournament. where everyone was like, oh, wow, it got over 100K. But it's like, yeah, you've got pre-infidelity Dr. Disrespect there. You got fucking Hiko's there. I think Shroud's there, whoever it was.
But PUBG did the right thing in a way.
Oh, sure.
It was the same kind of thing. It was the hilarious thing was it was done at the same venue as well. So the international one was done at Gamescom. And they chose Gamescom because they wanted a gaming hub where it could be released. And this was the first time it was really viewed. And they then put a $1.6 million prize pool on it. Everyone was talking about the International in 2011 when they were at Gamescom. It was on everyone's lips. They didn't care that the other hall right next to us was owned by Blizzard. And they were releasing their new World of Warcraft stuff. And they had other tournaments, StarCraft tournaments going on left, right, and center. It was an amazing kind of hype on the other side. But everyone, even if they weren't at the booth, they were talking about Dota 2. And PUBG did something very, very similar and very, very smart. They're like, we're going to take all the strongest brands we possibly can get. We're going to pump it all into one location, and then we're going to cover it.
Yeah.
And then even if the coverage is terrible, it won't matter because we have so much PR and everyone's talking about us at the biggest hub in Europe for gaming. Mm. So on that side, I was right. It was a good choice.
So, look, we're going to wrap up the show because I've got to pick Moses up, as I said. And it's a fascinating conversation. I know what's going to happen, right? We've had all this great conversation, all these great topics, bold opinions, everything I like to have on a show. But what's going to happen is people are going to tunnel in on what we just talked about, and people are going to say, Richard Lewis thinks the International should be pay-per-view. Don't think that. Don't necessarily want that.
I'm sorry,
already
Richard,
acknowledged
you've missed the opportunity now. You've been quoted. It's done. It's already on Reddit.
It's over. Just when I was trying to mend fences with the Dota community, this is what happens, right? So, look, we're not saying that. It's an idea that just need a lot of exploration. International, I admit that couldn't work for the International because of the way it's crowdfunded and everything. Terrible idea. Fuck me, right? I'm an idiot. But pay-per-view's coming, and I wonder if maybe the major system that we used to have could have been a pay-per-view kind of thing or whatever. Whatever. We'll just have to leave that one there. So here's what I do want to talk about. First of all, the guys over at League of Legends, this is where I want to end it. The guys over at League of Legends, they always say that they think League of Legends is going to be like baseball and it's going to exist for like hundreds of years. I mean, obviously they're idiots and it's just not true. But why has Dota 2 endured for as long as it has? And why do we still have a robust, record number of peak players and stuff, people still coming into the game?
Because you never leave Dota 2. Dota 2 is just something that once you're in it, you can't leave it. Even if you leave for a couple of months, you'll still come back. Once you understand the basics of it, it's very easy to come back. You just take a little bit of time to learn. There'll be something that will change on your favorite hero that makes you say, oh, I can now make this guy work. You'll always come back. There'll be something that will change. How long this can continue, don't know. We're now 6.5 years, I think.
Yeah.
Math? 7 years? So 6.5 years into Dota 2. That's a pretty long time. I put timelines on games to be 8 to 10 before the newest version has to come out.
Sure, and think about everything it's survived along the way, like the bullshit fucking lawsuits that cropped up around.
Look what we just survived now. It only just was announced. Yeah. Galaxy Battles Major is now being rescinded.
What?
Yep, it's no longer flagged as a major. It no longer has everything that comes with it. They just released a blog post on it.
Oh, nice! I'll have to check that out.
Linked it to you in Skype if you want to read it.
Oh yeah,
but we have things like this. This almost perfectly makes my point of the quality versus the quantity. What you just buy the rights, and now Valve are realizing we have to backpedal because we fucked up the details, and we could probably fix this for the 2018 to 2019 season. But the only way you can do this is by actually having the CS model, where you restrict the amount of primary events that can happen in a year, that have the reputation for it, and organizers have to earn the right to actually be called a major or a minor.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen. And there needs to be some good way to actually know that and not just say, well, Valve said we're now a major or a minor, because that just leaves, I know you probably had all these wonderful conversations of, why do these guys still have another major in CSGO? I don't understand this. These guys did a fantastic job doing a major, and now they don't have a major for a year and a half. What is this? This is the kind of conversation you need to avoid with the details.
Yeah. Well, look, man. To end the podcast, I'll have to get you on again. I feel we could have gone for another 2 hours, brother.
Well, when we sat in the E-League studios when we actually record that thing, we could have easily gone for a long time.
And listen, I'm whatever people think about me in the Dota scene, I'm still an advocate for doing Dota content over at E-League. Just so people know, the documentary free-to-play thing we did, I think it was some of our highest viewed stuff we put out under the E-League banner, if not official. And the next one after that is Rocket League. So we've high praise indeed. So I'd love to do some more stuff. I don't know what it would look like. But
let's have a chin wag and we'll see what we can come up with. In 2018, the year of doing something meaningful.
And thanks to all the community as well that did support that for E-League. I saw all the Reddit threads at the time. People were really cool about it. So who knows? But look, what is immediately around the corner for TobiWan? What you're going to be doing next?
Keep eyes on Best Matter. I'll be traveling around a bunch of blockchain conferences, actually telling more and more people about that. So that's going to be my nearest news. I have something really cool coming out of that as well, which will be content for everyone to consume. This will be really fucking awesome. We're actually, I want to say more, but I can't. But you'll know more. You'll know more in like 3 weeks. You'll know more. And everything else, that's like tournaments will start to kick up for me again in February. So I'll be back on the casting road in February.
All right, good. And Nerf Pangaea?
I don't give a shit.
All right.
I'm sorry. Put techies in captain's mode.
Oh,
that's what you need.
Oh, fuck this. Nah, I hate you now. But fuck that shit.
Just for having that opinion now, the Dota community loves you. Well done.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm back in the good graces. Well, look. Anyway, it was a delight to get you on. I wish you all the success for everything you're going to be doing in 2018. I'm sure I'll get you on again sometime. It's always good to talk about this shit from somebody that's been out there for so long and done a bit of everything in the business. And to all the people who tuned in, of course, thank you very much for the support. To the Dota people downvoting this currently on Reddit, it's all right. We all got strong opinions. You do it. How about it?
Oh, stop egging them on, or else they're actually going to do it. Stop your reverse psychology crap, Richard.
But it is, or is it reverse psychology? Because then I get to go on Twitter and I say, "Oh, look,
there right now to downvote."
Yeah. You see, I'm in their heads rent free, Toby. So anyway, I don't know when we'll next be doing a show. We got some T-shirt giveaways to do. We got 2. We're gonna do them next time me and Sam stream. Don't know when that'll be because I gotta look after Moses. We're gonna go get a steak and some drinks. I gotta record some stuff at E-League tomorrow. But we'll let you know. Stay glued to my Twitter. And anyway, as I said, until the next Richard Lewis show, thanks for tuning in and take care.